Hello and welcome to the Turn by Turn podcast. I am flying solo without Chris today because I couldn't find him. But we are talking with Kai today about his game Silence is a Lie. Kai, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. So, tell us a little about yourself.
Yes, I'm a programmer, first of all. I'm from the older generation, I guess, 44 years now. Maybe I'm one of the dinosaurs of game dev, let's say. Doing this for over 20 years now. And actually just learned programming because I wanted to do game dev. And for many, many years, I seem to have forgotten about this and did some other programming for clients, doing websites, doing app programming, whatever. And yeah, finally found my way back to do game dev.
Okay, cool. So, is this your first official game that you've been doing, or?
I have done some games. I'm not quite sure if I should really call them games. I did a game for the Ouya console, you may remember. This was a Kickstarter project, the Ouya console, this Android console. They really made, I guess, 5 million bucks back then. And then they brought out a bad console. But you were able to publish games pretty easy there. And there I did a small game. I did 2 small games for the app stores and a lot of games on a hobby basis for myself. But this project is the really first serious one, I guess, with a plan behind it, with a budget behind it, and putting in till now 2.5 years. And yeah, I guess there will be at least another half year to put in before this is something that I could give to the public. We have a prototype demo right now, but this is the real first project. Yeah.
It looks really cool. So, I have to kind of guess, is Final Fantasy Tactics somewhat of an inspiration for this?
Good guess. Of course it is. Of course it is. And I will not lie about this. When I was younger, playing on the PS1, Final Fantasy Tactics, that massively inspired me. I was playing as well the old XCOM games, stuff like this, and this definitely had an effect on me. And when I was thinking about what kind of game I want to do and what kind of game I can do within a given time with a given budget, um, Final Fantasy Tactics was definitely the one that came to my mind. To be precise, XCOM and Final Fantasy Tactics came to my mind, and I decided because I wanted to have some storytelling going on. XCOM may not be the game to do some nice storytelling, so that's actually why I ended up with something like Final Fantasy Tactics. And I know this always sounds a bit odd when you say I'm doing a game like, but I guess all of us got inspired by the games that we played, and it's not a shame to say that you like these games and you get massively inspired by them, and you do something like this. Yeah.
Like, the biggest compliment I think you could pay to a game is that it inspired you to do something else or something
Yeah.
like it. So,
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's bad. We have a running joke on the show that, every person we talk to has been inspired by a different Final Fantasy. So,
Yeah.
um, if you've listened to our episodes, you're gonna hear, like, literally every numbered Final Fantasy game is an inspiration, so you're in very good company. Everybody's inspired by
Okay.
Final
Okay.
Fantasy. It's just a matter of the number that happened to push you into game development. So, what is Silence is a Lie about?
Um, Actually, it's about my daughter. That may sound odd on the first view, but the basic story behind it is that an 11-year-old girl is witnessing her parents breaking up, getting divorced, and the game is actually about how this throws her into her own dark fantasy world. So it's about an inner conflict, first of all. Um, and this is just the beginning. She's thrown into her own fantasy world, is trying to make her way out. And this definitely gives us a lot of opportunities. Being in the strange fantasy world of a child gives you a lot of opportunities to play with characters, to play with settings, to play with different effects. And she is trying to make her way out. It's a classic story of uh, finding the way to yourself, dealing with the problems life is throwing at all of us, and having this inner conflict. This will not going to turn out like a regular Hollywood story where we have an happy end. It's not going this direction. The basic idea is really, I wanted to do a game. I'm not very creative. I'm a programmer, so I'm missing the creative part in myself. And this as well when it comes to inventing stories. So I just thought, okay, take a look at your own life, take a look at your own story, take the people that you know from there, exaggerate everything by a factor of, 100, and then just try to make a story out of it. And this somehow works pretty well, yeah. And I just want to put in a lot of life lessons I've learned myself into this game, and somehow, share ideas, share life lessons, and wrap this all up in a nice fantasy setting. That may sound a bit like a strange cocktail so far, but actually it's the regular fantasy setting with some serious background. I guess if you want to reach someone and put a meaning into something and tell a good story, you need to have some, even if it's in the very background, you need to have some serious setting, I guess.
So are you sort of playing through like her imagination?
Yeah, right. She's somehow in her own fantasy world, imagination caught there, and she needs to find her way out. And of course, we have the villains that are trying to keep her there, and But this story is building up piece by piece. And to be honest, it's not completely written at this point. That's what I like about this indie development process very much is every day then we work on it. We just we invent new parts and drop other parts because we just realized, okay, it makes more sense like this. Still, the story is not written to the end. And that's what I really like about it, because working on an open story so far somehow it has a very interesting effect on the development, even on the programming, on inventing the levels, on inventing magic abilities whatsoever. We kept it open so we can always invent new stuff.
That sounds really cool. It almost feels like Pan's Labyrinth. It feels a lot like that, where it's sort of a girl and sort of like a dark fantasy sort of setting.
I need to be honest, I don't know this movie. I need to check it out.
Oh yeah, you should definitely check it out. It's about a lot of things, I guess, but it's about a girl sort of dealing with a dark fantasy, and she ends up meeting a faun, and she goes through a lot of trials. So it's sort of a movie about growing up.
Okay.
So definitely worth checking out. I think it's in Spanish. So I personally had to watch it with subtitles because I don't speak many other languages very well. But
okay,
it feels similar. So is it a party-based game, or are you just sort of just playing as Kim?
Of course, you have your party that you will build up piece by piece. You have some, let's say, some main characters. So these are actually people from Kim's real life, including myself being in there. But as I just said, I took I'm not good at inventing something from scratch. So I just took a look at the people in her life, and every person you know has some characteristics. And if you just take them and exaggerate them dramatically, you get a very interesting person already. So you don't need to invent something totally new. And you will build up your party piece by piece. Some people will join you, some people get lost. And you can go to a tavern and recruit some people to have some reinforcement if you want to. So some main characters that are part of the story, and some which are just there to strengthen your party. And then you have this job class system where you can train everybody into a certain direction if you want to. And that's definitely the part where the game hopefully gets replayable, because you can you can make a decision and say, okay, I take this character and make him a real good fighter, or I take this character and make him a real good mage, or I make him an all-rounder, so he can do almost everything. And whatever path you choose, you have different characters, and we have a lot of abilities in there. And I guess one playthrough will not be enough to check out all the abilities, all the magic spells, all the battle abilities. And this is how you set up your own party. Yeah.
I think that's really cool, and I'm not sure why you keep saying you're not creative, because that sounds like exactly what creativity is. So
Okay,
maybe don't be so hard on yourself.
telling myself a wrong story about myself. Okay, that may be, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't get much more creative than turning the world you see around you into a relatable fictional world. So
But I was really sitting here, and I knew I want to make a game. I already carved out the time where I knew, okay, this 2-3 years I will really spend a lot of time on making a game, and just I knew it should be some story driven game, and it was really hard to invent something when you're sitting in front of a blank piece of paper. And this really helped me. Maybe for other developers, that's also a good approach. Take the people around you and think how they would be if they would be in a fantasy world or if they would be in a movie. And you just will get pretty soon some very nice and very interesting characters. Yeah.
you do a lot of the programming. Do you use like a certain designer? Are you in like an RPG Maker or SRPG or Unity or something?
The engine or the game itself is totally written from scratch. That's just
Really?
because I'm a programmer and I like the programming part of it. Of course,
Mhm.
there are great engines and you can use them. That would really take away some fun from me, because I like this graphic programming, really being responsible for every single pixel on my screen. Of course, it would save me a lot of time if I used a different engine, but yeah, that's really the fun of the programming. And I'm doing programming. I have my coworker who is working on me on this full time. And when it comes to all the graphic elements, I'm working with people from around the world. Some people from South America, from Colombia, from Brazil. Also someone from the Philippines, I guess he's coming from. So this is what I like about this as well. Many different people from different countries bringing in different aspects that I would have thought about. I'm no designer, so I couldn't draw this pixel art or the great levels myself. I could do the 3D geometry. I know how to do this, but when it comes to texturing of the stuff, that's not my business.
No, but I think it looks really cool, and it's really impressive that you do it all from scratch, because I know that a lot of like the more story-driven games are sort of built in with the RPG makers that help like kind of give you the tools, and then you sort of enhance them with your own artists and things. So, do you have an artist that you have artists from like around the world that kind of contribute, and then they give you the pictures and you make the move? Is that sort of the
Yes, it took me some time to find the right artist, because first of all, I'm like every indie dev working on a very small budget. Actually, there is no real budget; it's all from your own pockets. So you are looking for cheap rates. Need to be honest here, and this is why I use online tools to find people around the world from companies where they can work on a lower rate, and it's still good money for them. That's quite important, I guess. Then you need to find artists who somehow in their natural style have something that you like, and then I just give them the major details about a level or about a character, and they start drawing. And yeah, then I really work with what I get from them. They draw the pixel art and I make it move. They create the levels in 3D and texture them, and I put them in the game and get them animated. And that's the work process. And it's really great, because sometimes the artists, the pixel artists or the level artists, they do something that I haven't planned, and this just brings in a new idea. And sometimes it really, just because the artist has drawn something in the level, we change the entire story just because of one visual aspect that just got us a new idea. And that's what I really like about. So I'm always very curious when I get new material from my artists, because I always know, okay, this will have a turn, an effect on the game where it's going.
I think it's cool because it adds like a collaboration sort of effort to it. So just because you didn't think of it, that they translated your idea a little differently than you were thinking, so you get to kind of make the game better because of that.
Yeah, that's really where it's going.
Like the colors and everything, like really match that dark fantasy with like you don't have like the really bright colors. You have sort of the more muted colors that make you sort of in a darker place than like the happy-go-lucky colors.
Yeah, we are starting with bright, happy colors, and then of course we are declining to darker colors, and still not totally happy with the color profile. I'm working on this one as well. Luckily, this is something that you can change at any point. So even when the game is done 99%, you can do some easy switches and change the overall color scheme. Still working on this one, but yeah, it's going the right direction. This also took some time playing around and testing.
I can't even imagine. So when you do you just build out like a playtest mode when you want to see how it's coming along, or do you have like testers that you use?
Till now, a few weeks ago, we were only testing on our own. Now we have this prototype demo, which is working, and we gave it already to 3 close friends just to get rid of the most obvious bugs. We don't want to give it to many people and then have the absolute obvious bugs there. And now we are fixing this obvious bugs from this first retest. And then I'm giving this prototype demo to a lot of people that I've met on Twitter, on YouTube. And they will just play it through and hopefully give me a lot of feedback. Of course, you get, when you give out your demo, you only get feedback which sounds like, this is not working, this is strange, I don't like this, change this one. But this is the feedback that you need. There is no need when someone is playing your prototype and is telling you everything's great. That's no, it can't be. There must be some problems. You need to find them.
I know someone else we spoke with, and blanking on who it was saying, when you play test it, you don't want to find out after you release the game that there's a part where you can just walk off the map and disappear. So
yeah, right.
It's important to try even like the silly things, because you never know like how people are going to play your game.
Yeah, and when you're programming it yourself, you always use the right click path, how we call it. You always press the correct keys. You don't try crazy stuff because you've programmed it and you know how to use it. And people which get no introduction at all just get the game and they just hit on the keyboard, hit on the mouse. They don't know what to do. And then, okay, exception, error, game is crashing, whatever. You need these people. You won't try it yourself. Yeah.
How long of a game is it? Am I playing 300 hours or am I playing 10 or?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's hard to tell. Maybe when we started putting together the prototype demo, we just thought, okay, let's put this together, and we have 1/4 hour playable. And then we put it all together and we played it and ended up with 1 hour at least playing. And we will have at least 50 different levels, a lot of story going on, and I assume you will not manage to win every battle on the first try. So you will go back and forth, you will train your people, you will equip your people at the shops, buy the right weapons, learn the proper spells, some random encounters, and I guess you will end up with something about 30 to 40 hours gameplay. I guess this is going that direction.
Wow.
To really be a full-fledged game. Of course, there will be a lot of story in it, and this tactical turn-based battles, they take time. So sometimes there may be a big battle taking you half an hour, or maybe 25 hours. You lose, you start over again. Okay, another 25, not hours, sorry, minutes. 25 minutes, of course.
I was like, that's quite the battle.
Yeah, that's a battle indeed. So I'm aiming at something like this, and still looking for some funding from different sources. And depending on the funding, actually, is the number of levels that we bring in. Yeah, but 50 levels is definitely the minimum I want to have in it. And that should get us to 30, 40 hours of gameplay.
And then you said it sort of has those rogue qualities where you can replay it.
Yes, you can definitely replay it. Yeah. And then try different settings for your characters. There are also different ways in the story. I'm not quite sure if we're going to have really different endings, but you can go optional ways, have optional characters in it, and then the story changes a bit. There are some side quests that you may or may not be able to do based on the path you've chosen so far. Yeah, it's not one straight line to go, but whenever you play it, you should be able to see something new.
So I think I have to ask this because people will be curious. Does your daughter know that she's sort of the feature character?
Oh yes, she knows, and she doesn't like it at all.
Oh, no?
And when I showed it to her the first time, and that's this younger generation, she's 16 now, She looked at it and she said, "It's also pixely. So can't you do nice graphics?" No, it's a style. I want to have it like this. And I even gave her the demo 3 weeks ago. I ask her every day, and she always goes, "Yeah, I will play it one day." And yeah, that's a bit disappointing. But in the end, I guess one day she will play it. Best case, her school fellows come to her and talk to her about the game that they have played, and she is the main character. That would be funny. But yeah, she's playing Sims all day long, so she's maybe not the target group for my game.
That's awesome. I'm sure that someday she will like play through it and say, "Wow, he really did love me quite a bit."
Yeah, I hope so. She may come to me as well and yell at me for all the crazy jokes I built in there and how I exaggerate all the characters of her life. But yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, I like the game as it's going, and I guess she will as well. And somehow she may realize at a certain age that it's a nice gift from a father to make a game just for his daughter.
I think so. So at the very least, I'm on board. So, yeah, you said you were probably about another year out as far as like a release date. I know it's not really fair to ask release date questions, but is there any sort of like imaginary line in the sand that you're hoping to finish by?
I hope to finish by the beginning of this year. As we realized till now, it has not worked. It's really depending on the budget. As I just said, the more money I can raise from different sources, the more levels I will bring in. And worst case scenario, if there is no more fundings, we just have something like a first chapter, let's say, and then we bring this one out. I hope to really have something by the end of this year, and definitely some more polished demo in the summer to give it to even more people. What we have now is a prototype demo, which is really not much, and I want to polish it, bring in more level, and give it to a wider range of people. Definitely in the summer. And if everything goes perfectly fine, we have a playable version by the end of this year. This may not be the finished, totally polished product, but this may be something. But it's always hard to say. It really depends. It's not a question of the programming. It's really a question of the artists having the time to do all the levels, all the characters. This takes way more time than the programming. The programming itself, if I need to, I just make a bunch of night shifts and put in everything. I can control this myself, but what I won't do is stress my artists' time. They should take their time. They should make nice levels, nice characters, and I just wait for them and put it together.
So it sounds what's the best way for people to support you and kind of learn more about you?
I just set up the Steam page. It's in review now by Steam. Maybe you could already check this one out. You can find us on Twitter and just follow us there. And if you are interested in playing even the prototype demo that we will have pretty soon, just contact us. That would be a massive support if you just play the demo, give us an honest feedback. That will really help us.
Okay, great. So we tend to deal on Twitter here, so hopefully we can push some people in your direction.
Okay, thanks.
But is the main goal to release on Steam, or do you have kind of loftier ideas of going to Switch or PS5 or virtual reality or something?
Okay, virtual reality will not make that much sense, I guess, but anything else should be done. So it's going on Steam. I'm trying to go. No, I'm not trying to. I will go on Switch, but Nintendo always is checking the games and needs to allow you to go on Switch, so you can't 100% be sure that you will be allowed. Just going for PlayStation as well, for the Xbox as well. Not quite sure about the mobile implementation. Technically, it's possible, but I'm not quite sure if the controls will be so nice. But that, again, is just some of the programming fun that I started with. I like to port it to every system just because it's possible. Not because it needs to be done, but it's just possible. And of course, you reach a wider range of players if you just provide it for any system.
It seems like it'd be a good fit for the Switch, where they just keep giving us every RPG we could ever want for Switch. So
Yeah, I think also Switch is the best device for this one. Yeah,
It'd be a nice addition to the collection.
Hope so. But yeah, just Nintendo needs to say yes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll do that, and we'll have you back when we're actually talking about having played it. But
Okay.
thank you so much for making the time. I know it's super late there for you, so I appreciate you staying up.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, I will just go right back to bed when we've done this one here.
It's midnight there for him, or maybe 12:30 at this point. So we got to let him get back to bed. So, but thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me. And I'm very happy about your podcast. I've listened to every episode, I guess, so far. It's very entertaining. I really like it. Just keep up the good work.
I always joke that Chris is the main talent of the show. So, so I appreciate that you've listened to all the episodes. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Hey there, podcast listeners. I am David.
And I'm Kate.
And together we host a podcast that you might be interested in if you like The Legend of Zelda.
There are lots of awesome podcasts out there and a lot of awesome Zelda podcasts out there.
That's right, Kate, and we are another one of them. In fact, that is the name of our show, Another Zelda Podcast.
And in our show in particular, we talk about some of our favorite dungeons, characters, boss battles. We do a couple top 10 lists here and there.
We have some deep dive episodes, and we even pepper in a couple quiz episodes.
We talk about our own experiences, we do some review episodes, talk about our challenges, our struggles, and our victories.
That's right. If it has to do with The Legend of Zelda, we talk about it.
You can check out our episodes on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and a lot of the other podcast services that are out there.
And you can also check out our episodes on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com.
All right, we will see you there.
Okay, bye!
Jake, have you ever been looking for a definitive Nintendo ranking and can't seem to find it because it's just everybody's own opinion?
Honestly, all the time, Sam.
Well, I'm looking for someone to give us the answers.
Wait, you mean like a podcast made by two young, handsome men where they create a definitive top 5 list of all things Nintendo?
Should we just do it ourselves?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Let's give it a shot. I'm Sam.
And I'm Jake.
And at Top 5 Nintendo, I'm going to give you my top 5 list.
And I'm going to give you my top 5 list.
And then we're going to duke it out and see what the real top 5 is.
Hello.
And today we are also joined by Eldin Turulja, who makes the game, or who is making the game Those Who Rule.
Hey, thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no
Of
problem.
course. So let's jump right into it. Tell us about Those Who Rule. What is the game about?
Yeah, so Those Who Rule is a tactical turn-based RPG. Very kind of similar gameplay flow to games like Fire Emblem, where you have your kind of story and then your battle and then story and then on to the next chapter. It's got a more heavy focus on the turn-based combat, and it's going to be on a hex grid to solve some of the what I view as problems within games like Fire Emblem.
Ooh, that was on my list of questions to ask you about. So why don't we just jump right into that? Why go with the hex grid? I feel like you don't see it too often anymore.
Yeah, so for me, the hex grid solves the main issue that I have with Fire Emblem, where you kind of get to late game and you have those one or two good, like super uber good units, right? That you could just throw into like 20 enemies and just have them all mowed down, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing with the hex grid is since it allows for being attacked from 6 sides, what I'm doing is basically making the front is still normal combat that you'd see kind of just in Fire Emblem, kind of normal stuff that you'd see. And then the back 3 are flanks and backstabs. So then if you get hit from those sides, it doesn't matter how good the character is. If you position wrong and they're surrounded by enemies, they're going to die. You're going to lose that unit. So that was the main driving force behind that decision.
So are characters more vulnerable from if they're attacked from behind than in front?
Yeah, absolutely. So directly from behind right now, I'm still fiddling with the numbers, nothing set in stone, but directly from behind, there's a damage bonus and your character can't dodge it. If it's from the two flanks, which is basically just the two from directly behind, right? Since there's 6 around them, then they get 100% hit chance. They'll get hit no matter what. They can't dodge it, but there's no bonus damage. So you really want to avoid the backstabs. You want to avoid flanks too, but backstabs is the main thing you want to avoid.
I see. So yeah, that is pretty markedly different from other games in the genre right now. What is the story kind of about? Like, you don't have to give us any spoilers or anything, but where do we pick up?
Yeah, so the story picks up right from so kind of like a recruitment day, right? So there's 5 main nations, and then you're playing through Fern, which is currently going through the recruitment process, and you're playing as well, I should say your party starts as the recruits Sliker and Marcus, and they're on their way to the capital, just got recruited from their hometown. And as they make their way, they're ambushed by a country they're at war with, Iroquois. And then that's kind of where the story picks off. So you're going through recruitment, that kind of ambush happens, and then you're also, after that, you take them through the training process, through their first missions, and then that's kind of where some twists and turns start happening that I won't spoil yet, but that's kind of the premise early on.
That sounds pretty interesting. I see on your Steam page too, you talked about some of the twists and turns, but you use the word like make story altering decisions. So is there, are there big decisions that alter like the whole story or?
Yeah. So the kind of story all the way through is going to be fairly linear. Like there's not going to be branching paths is what I mean by that. Okay. But the decisions you make are gonna have an impact on the actual story as you go through. So like sparing a character at a certain part of the story will maybe in a later chapter, they come back and you have extra enemies to face, right? Stuff like that. I really want to integrate into the game. And I recently I don't know if you've seen the Twitter update. I recently just finally got that working. The text choices within the game, within the dialogue, and saving that all in the back end so it can be used later. But yeah, so that's mainly what I mean by that. And then the end game will also be different depending on some of the choices you make.
I like that you went to if you spare an enemy, there'll be more enemies later, because I really thought it was like, oh, when you spare an enemy, he might join you, and I feel like that's really common at this point. Yeah, but it's rare that it's like you spare a guy and it's like, well, I'm gonna go then, and maybe I'll fight you again later, and you're like, I don't know that was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in Fire Emblem, the spare option is always the right answer.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. If you can talk to someone, it's almost always a good decision. I think there was like one where they kind of threw a wrench in there with, I think it was Path of Radiance. I don't know if you guys play that game, but where like Jill talks to her dad and then she just like becomes an enemy unit out of nowhere. It's like, what the hell just happened? This is supposed to happen in Fire Emblem, but I thought that mechanic was super cool. So I'm hoping to add stuff like that.
Yeah, I loved that. We have a whole episode with me ranting about how much I love Path of Radiance.
Yeah, I watched that one.
So, while we're making the comparisons, is there permadeath?
Yeah, there is going to be permadeath.
No.
I think most games kind of start with a normal mode and then tack on the hard mode afterward. And I'm kind of doing that in reverse. I want the game to be just kind of hard by default, and then I'm going to add the easier mode later on is kind of the path I'm hoping to take it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, permadeath. One thing that I thought was a really interesting mechanic that I did want to add was, and as much as people hate it, games like Bannerlord, where dialogue choices can kill off your characters. I always thought that was super interesting because there has to be consequences in the game, right? To make it interesting. But I thought of a way around it where dialogue can kill off the character, but you still get a unit with their same stats, same abilities, but it's just a generic unit now. But the character is killed off. So that way, if you've invested really hard into the character, again, you need them for the end game, they're still there, but you always have kind of that badge of shame, like it's a generic now. The character's dead. You did this, kind of give them that consequence.
I love that.
Certain choices.
Is there something like that in Shadow Dragon where like like it's not even remotely like you lose a main character and you get like a replacement, but it's like a level 2, like regardless of where you are in the game. Am I making this up? I don't think I am.
No, he's talking about Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, and that one's a little bit weird in that, like, if you lose a certain amount of characters, you actually get side missions and you get to recruit other characters that are appropriately scaled. They're probably a little bit weaker than what you would have had otherwise. But I think you start getting generics if you lose too many. I'm not entirely sure though, because I haven't done that.
Yeah, it's like
This guy's too good.
like a built-in anti-soft blocker sort of thing, where it's like, well, here's some things, so you technically have things, but they're useless. Sorry.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if nothing else, meat shields are always nice. But so to jump back to this, what kind of character classes and things are we going to see in those who rule? Is it mostly Fire Emblem kind of classes, or are we going to get somebody that has a machine gun or something? Like how zany are we getting this?
Yeah, no, it's pretty structured to the medieval fantasy kind of stuff you'd expect. Swords, sword wielders, lance wielders, axe wielders. What I'm doing is with the classes, there's going to be 1 and 2-handed weapons, right? So if you want to be more aggressive, for example, you can use a 2-handed sword, or if your characters need a little more defense, you can switch out for the sword and a shield, right? I started off wanting to make it really realistic, so I wanted it to be like a high reliance on shields, because in medieval combat, if you don't have a shield, you're probably dead.
Yeah,
or like some super heavy armor like a knight. Yeah, the classes are going to be fairly similar. The one exception is magic is going to be extremely limited. I was going to take out magic altogether, but I thought of a kind of a cool way of incorporating it that I thought would be interesting. So there is going to be like a spiritualist class, but they're not going to be like shooting fireballs or anything like that. It's more about kind of controlling your body more. So like, let me think of an example. So if say you were going to throw a punch, a normal person punches at a certain amount of power. They can kind of infuse certain parts of their body with extra energy and make it stronger. So something like that is how the magic in this game is going to work out.
I gotcha. Kind of like a monk class kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like a battle monk, something like that would be exactly it. And then since games like this kind of need a healer, there is going to be a healer class through that too, where the more advanced units can kind of through contact with others also make their body do the similar thing. So like it's more about being like super in tune with your body and being able to, like the example would be like, you don't beat your own heart, right? Like it just happens. But these people are like, they're so in tune, they can increase their heart rate, decrease their heart rate. You don't, like when you have a gash on your arm, right? You're not the person consciously making the decision to go close that gash up, right? These people do make that conscious decision. So that's kind of how the magic works there.
I mean, speak for yourself. I've been working on this for decades.
Yeah, trying, right? But hey, you might get it.
All right. So is this your first game that you've made?
Yeah, first one that I would show to anyone anyway. I did a little bit of Fire Emblem hacking back when I was a teen, and that's really what got me into not just game development but software development as a whole. So that's my day job. I'm just a software developer, right? And then by night I create this indie game. But yeah, it was definitely that was the first game that I kind of made, and I made it up to like chapter 2, I think, before like it all just came crumbling down because I had no idea what I was doing. Just like no reference exceptions everywhere. Like everything was just messed up. Like it was just, I couldn't keep going with the game. Just I had no idea what I was doing. But now that I've had more formal training, it's going a lot better, at least.
So are you doing this all from scratch, or is it like through like an SRPG maker or like Unity or?
Yeah. So this is all from scratch through Unity 3D. So I guess I'm not making my own engine from scratch. I'm not a masochist, right? Like I'm gonna use some tools available to me. And then I use, since I'm a solo dev, the only person on the, like doing the actual development, I use asset packs, where I can, where it doesn't make it too obvious in the game. But other than that, yeah, pretty much 100% from scratch. I have a artist I commissioned because I could not make these half body portraits to save my life. So they help me out a lot with that. And then I also have somebody for backgrounds that helps out a lot. But yeah, other than that, all from scratch. Code is completely from scratch. Yeah, it's been interesting. It's not a pile of spaghetti yet, so I'm going to keep going.
You just released the demo not too long ago, right?
Yep. I think it was December 2nd or 3rd. I don't remember the exact date, but it's been out for about 2 months now.
Have a lot of people played it, or do we need to push them to play it?
Yeah, I think there's a thing on Steam where, so I actually released it Steam has this new feature where you can actually release it as a kind of an actual open beta and control it as a beta. I think before people would just do demos for their betas, and like you would just get a bunch of like bots spamming it. But from here, I think their new way, I didn't seem to get much spam, and I think there was about 150 people actually downloaded it. I think like over 200 claimed a license, and then over 100 actually played it. So super, super good feedback so far. I think I've gotten 15 people to actually fill out the survey, which has been immensely helpful. It actually drives a lot of what I work on next. And then I think we're at like 600 wish lists or something right now. So the community feedback is already it's exceeded my expectations, I should say. I was not expecting, because I mean, I had no game development experience, right? No kind of credentials before this, didn't come from a studio and have, I worked on this game and this game to kind of promote it. So the feedback I've gotten and the response I've gotten has really been heartwarming so far.
Well, good. And is that the best way for people to support you? Download the Steam demo and fill out that survey at the end? Yeah, absolutely. The survey is super useful in kind of pointing me to what I should work on next, or what part of the game needs more improvement. In an aggregate, it's been immensely useful. Just like I think I do like a 1 through 5 in the survey for different parts of the game and how the player experienced them. So yeah, that's definitely the most helpful thing somebody could do.
So good. What sort of genre would you call this? Like, is it strictly like a medieval fantasy? Like, based on some of the art, I thought maybe it was a little darker than some of the other games that are kind of similar.
Yep. I'm definitely trying to take it down that route. I don't want to fall into the kind of, the tropes of just, there's an obvious bad guy. Here's, there's 1,000-year-old dragon. You got to slay him. Those games, I mean, they're not bad games. They definitely have their place, and it's a good story for people who just kind of want to be the good guy, right? I mean, there's enough morally gray in the real world that, you just kind of want to relax and play a game, which is like an obvious bad character to fight. But yeah, I definitely don't want to go down that route with this game. I want you to question a lot of the decisions you make. The people you're killing, they're also people in the game. They have families. There's going to be stuff coming up in the game to kind of not regret what you're doing, but just kind of put it into perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely prefer stories like that, because I don't know, I like to think like that, and it helps me get more immersed in the world, because it feels more like a living, breathing thing.
Yeah, where your actions have consequences, and it's not just like you can do no wrong, right?
Yeah, and even when you are doing something, like, it's just sort of like in war, things have to happen, and sometimes those things are unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And so, who's sort of like the main character, just to get a little more story stuff?
Yeah, so the main characters are Sliker and Marcus, who you're introduced to in the prologue, and then a character that comes up in chapter 1 is going to be Ilyana. So she is also a recruit coming up, and then she kind of joins your party in the first chapter, and you'll be able to control her just like everyone else. Kind of main characters, but also not really, without giving too much spoilers, are Gerard, the general that you're with in the prologue chapter, and then those 4 are the main that the game's going to revolve around. And then there's a lot more introduced. I think I have 40 right now, somewhere around there, art commissioned out, and characters kind of with short backstories. I still have a lot of fleshing out to do, but there's going to be quite a few. But yeah, those are the main ones.
That sounds great, though. How long are you thinking it's going to be?
Yeah, so I'm aiming for 18 chapters. That is the goal. I don't exactly but don't hold me to that. If one day I release and people are like, you said 18. No, it might be less, it might be more. I doubt it's more. It might be less. Like, I'm trying to trim it off. I don't want it to be like a super, super long experience. I want it to be kind of what we were what we were kind of talking about before the interview, respect people's time. And I think once you get to the late game in games like this, when your units get powerful enough, at least for me personally, and they're just kind of cutting everyone down, it's when the game, stops being challenging. And so I want to try and find that sweet spot where, your characters are still growing. They kind of almost reach their max potential. And then that's kind of where it ends.
So you said 18 chapters. If it releases with 17, we can assume that the final chapter where Sliker is resurrected and ascends to sainthood has been removed.
Yeah, ultimate godhood. Yeah. It's getting cut just because you said it. Just because you spoiled it for all the listeners now. It's getting cut.
Yep. Sorry, listeners. That's just how it has to be sometimes.
This is a savant level storyteller, so he's able to predict stories before they happen.
Yeah.
Before they're even finished.
Yeah.
I'm spoiling stuff before you know what happens.
I can't believe it.
It's the editor in him. He just pulls stuff out.
Yeah. You guys signed an NDA before this, right? This isn't allowed to go in, right? Giving away the story like that. No. Just kidding.
No. We get aggregated all the time, though, so don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really cool game. The art style is like pretty dark and feels very like the world is very lived in. Is that basically what you were going for?
Yeah, that's definitely intentional. I think I had gritty at some point in the Steam description. I don't know if that's still in there. I got to check it. But yeah, I'm definitely still going for like the kind of not super dark, like I'm not trying to give people depression, but get that more gritty, realistic feel. Like there's not going to be spiked armor, purple armor, stuff like that coming out. With the armor designs, especially, and my artist, I think, is doing he's not my artist, I commissioned him. Feels like pretentious to say that. The person making the art for the game is really, really good at taking the designs and making them fairly realistic. I still want to have a little fun with them, like not make it just like completely medieval rags, but yeah, I definitely don't want to, have like spikes coming out, like shooting out from different parts of the armor. Definitely want to keep that gritty, almost realistic feel, kind of toe that line.
So since like Fire Emblem is like a somewhat like inspiration, like am I going to be able to marry all of these characters together at the end if I can talk enough?
Well, I have thought about that at some point. That is the support systems in Fire Emblem. I really like some of like, I think there was like petting in one game or something like that, like the team parties.
That would be Fates.
Yeah, that stuff. I was like, no, that's not why I play these games, right?
I felt exactly the same.
Yeah, I kind of taking it the opposite route if I can. But I still,
you're not petting your characters. You're stabbing them.
Yeah, there will not be any petting of the characters. You know what? If there's enough demand, no.
We're gonna get the petting DLC.
Yeah, petting DLC. Well, I think like Dark Deity has like a beach mode coming out, something like that. I was like,
I hadn't seen that yet. That's funny.
Yeah. It's like just stuff like that. I mean, it's it's fun. It's harmless, but at least for the first version of the game, there's not gonna be anything like that. But on the topic of supports, there will be not kind of traditionally how you see it in Fire Emblem. While we were talking about Path of Radiance, it's going to be more like that, where there's base conversations depending on, there's going to be, the default ones obviously for each chapter, but then there's also going to be extra ones depending on the actions you have taken throughout the story, like certain dialogue options. A character might come back and give you an item, right? Just for a basic example, depending on how well you did in the previous chapter, if you did a certain decision, beat it at a certain length, stuff like that. So there's going to be different relationship, not multipliers, like relationship factors, depending on how well you do in the gameplay and the dialogue choices you make.
And I assume that having a character be replaced by a generic after they're killed will render these options null. So you won't get a generic guy showing up being like, remember when we grew up together, bro? Like, who are you?
Do you remember this battle? No, I don't remember it with you. No, yeah, that'll be the punishment for the player for letting a character die. Yet nothing at the end with them.
Although it'd feel almost more demeaning to have him show up and be like, do you remember?
Yeah.
That would aggravate me so much.
Just really twist the knife, It's a good idea, man. It's a good idea. If you haven't filled out the survey, go fill out the survey with that. I'm putting it on the Trello board right now.
Like the final like wrap up each character can just be, well, he let his lover die, so that stinks.
That would be good. Even I mean, I might steal that. I might actually steal that one. That is not a bad idea. Yeah, just to kind of put it into context,
Well, we are almost out of time. So do you have anything else that you really want people to know about your game, Those Who Rule?
Just a huge shout out to those that are already supporting. And I think I have like 200 followers on Twitter now, which is just another thing that just kind of blew me out, blew my expectations away. So thank you to everyone who's given feedback. Big thank you to you guys for having me on. This is awesome. This is my first interview I've ever done, so I hope it's good.
Oh, you've done great.
It's been fun.
Sweet. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, you guys have been great too. Thank you for having me on. And then big shout out to the turn-based community on Twitter. I did not know that was a thing until I joined. I wasn't huge on Twitter either way before making this game, but the community has been super welcoming. A lot of great feedback comes from the people there. So just a big shout out to just in general, the turn-based community, the people that participate in, the hashtag turn-based Thursday, stuff like that. And then you guys too, for making the videos you do, and a bunch of other cool content creators. So
yeah,
well, thanks for coming on.
Really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
It's unreal.
Awesome.
If you want to support Eldin Turulja, I got it right, I think. In his game Those Who Rule, make sure to follow it on Steam and wishlist that, and download the demo and fill out that survey. If people want to follow you on Twitter, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the Twitter handle is just @ThoseWhoRule. I got that one before anyone else, so that was good.
That's surprising. That's good.
I know. The funny thing, the game was originally called Tides of War when I was making it like as a Fire Emblem hack, and then I tried to register the domain when I was like, okay, I'm actually going to make this as a game, and it was taken. Like there's like a Pirates of the Caribbean Tides of War or something, so I couldn't do that, so I had to edit it. But
oh yes, the classic that all I'm sure sprung to our minds the second you said that.
Yeah, the classic Pirates of the Caribbean Tides of War. I think it's a mobile game, but
of course
it is. Yeah.
It'll be our next episode.
Yeah, free advertising.
Well, that's going to do it for us. If you want to follow us, we are the Turn by Turn podcast. You've obviously found us at least somewhere to be hearing this, but we are available wherever podcasts are found, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I'm sure many others that would surprise me. You can follow us @Turn by Turn on Twitter.
Nope. They can follow the Turn by Turn Pod on Twitter.
Thank you. @the Turn by Turn Pod. Yeah, I'm bad at this outro thing.
I'll butcher it too.
That was good. I thought that was good.
So follow us there, and we will see all of you next time.